Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Her Habits. Today I wanted to talk about what's going on in the States with the gas prices that are insanely high and just the way that the government's been sort of responding to it and dealing with it, like how that might relate to the World Economic Forum's Agenda 2030 in regards to climate change. The average price of gas hit over $4 a gallon on March 6th, which is the highest price since 2008, highest price in nearly 14 years. I had seen that in some places it was as high as $7 a gallon. President Joe Biden seems to be looking to other countries, dictatorship-run countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, Venezuela, to speed up oil production rather than have the states just produce it themselves. So the US they produce some of their own oil, but they're pretty oil dependent on other countries, and they currently continue to receive oil from Russia amid the current Ukraine invasion. Basically, they're kind of blaming the gas prices right now on the Ukraine invasion, but apparently, like well before that, these prices have been just going up and up and up. Like, yeah, the issue going on with the Ukraine and everything, it might have made it a lot worse. Like, the States does get a little bit of oil from Ukraine, but this was already an issue before that. So White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, she was getting questioned about these high gas prices. So she was responding to the public about this. This is a description from the Independent's YouTube video from the White House press briefing on March 7th. Psaki claps back on Fox reporters' questions about rising gas prices. Let me give you the facts. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has used a contentious question-answer session with a Fox News correspondent to refute reports blaming President Joe Biden's energy policies for recent high gas prices. While addressing reporters at her daily news briefing, Ms. Psaki was pressed by Fox News reporter Peter Doocy on reports that the Biden administration is looking to backstop a potential ban on Russian oil imports by bringing in a new supply from Iran or Venezuela. Both countries are currently blocked from selling oil on U.S. markets by economic sanctions imposed during the Trump administration. When questioned on the high gas prices, Psaki blames the invasion of Ukraine, and when asked why not just produce more oil domestically, she expresses that there are 9,000 approved oil leases that the oil companies are not using, which was the same answer she gave in the previous press briefing on March 3rd.
Why not apply the same logic to energy and increase domestic production here?
Well, there are 9,000 approved oil leases that the oil companies are not tapping into currently, so I would ask them that question.
I don't know how much oil production, but in doing my research, it seems it's not so simple as having the leases. I think there needs to be incentive, and if these leases mean like they're like approved places to drill on, is the land even suitable to drill on? And I think there's just like a lot more variables. A bit of my hunch why the Democrats, they don't want to drill in their own countries, it seems like it could be a bit of a virtue signaling in the climate change narrative, the impending like climate change crisis.
The climate crisis.
Because it's like, what does it really matter? Like, if you're still going to use the oil, like if you're kind of against using oil in the name of climate change and go green and all that, like what does it matter if another country is producing it rather than you?
It's not our fight alone, it's a global fight.
I guess maybe there could be a little bit less local pollution from looking into this. Even though the states will get oil from other countries, it seems like they still refine it in the states, which the refinery of the oil causes like a lot of pollution. And sometimes, like, I think the extraction apparently a process called fracking with like extraction can be pretty bad for the environment. And I think some states have been banning that and stuff like that. But the thing is people right now are suffering because of this. Like, it's getting higher and higher and higher just by the day, that like people can't afford this. Like, this issue that's happening just can't really go on at the rate it's going. And instead of like the states just doing what they kind of need to do to at least solve this like current issue, like the easiest option in my opinion would just be to start manufacturing oil domestically, like make that happen, like give incentive, like give maybe grants to the oil companies or whatever you need to do. A little while back, I think it was, they sought out Saudi Arabia to produce more oil for them, and then they declined, and now they're like looking to these other two countries. I don't know. I just think it's kind of better to be more dependent as a country for resources rather than depend on other countries. Right now, like, this issue needs to be dealt with, and it seems like they're sort of possibly just caring more about their image with the climate change stuff, like, rather than just like getting the people the freaking gas. How they're acting about this situation, getting these other countries to kind of like do their dirty work, like make the oil for them, with that they're still going to consume. It kind of reminds me of the scenario of someone who so easily eats meat, but they can't like ever fathom the idea of hunting, killing the animal themselves to eat. Like, they'll just like go to like the mainstream grocery store where like the animals are treated absolutely horribly, and it feels like they like maybe it separates them from the suffering of the animal or whatever. And I myself, like, I'm not vegetarian or anything like that. Like, I feel like I need meat in my diet, and I'm guilty of this too, you know, with buying the mainstream grocery store meat. But I'm lately just trying to source my meat products, animal products, from ethical sources and stuff like that. But obviously I could do a lot better of a job. But the Biden administration needs to do what's best for their country, what's best for the people, the American people that are very much being affected by these really high gas prices, rather than being affected by this doom of climate change in the moment. So while this was happening, Vice President Kamala Harris, what was she up to? Well, this is from the Daily Mail. Kamala Harris says it is time to make a transition to green energy as she pushes electric cars and clean transit with Pete Buttigieg. Interesting last name. While Americans face record gas prices. So when these guys made their announcement, Pete Buttigieg is the transportation secretary. When these guys made this announcement, like, they did not mention at all the high gas prices. It almost seemed like this is their solution, apparently, is like, okay, we're just going to go green and get these like electric cars, which is going to take years for one thing. Yeah, it just seems like the administration is just not dealing with this problem, or it's not super concerning to them. Vice President Kamala Harris and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg on Monday pushed a transition to green energy and electric cars as Americans face record high prices at the pump. As gas costs soar and more workers are returning to the office as COVID numbers fall, President Joe Biden's administration announces a $3.7 billion boost for public transportation, including an investment in new fleets of electric buses. We are all in the midst of a turning point. We have the technologies to transition to a zero-emission fleet, Harris said during the announcement. We can address the climate crisis and grow our economy at the same time. Buttigieg also stressed how the money would help the environment. Anyways, so what does this all have to do with the World Economic Forum and their Agenda 2030 and climate change and all that stuff? Well, I'll now read an excerpt from an article on the World Economic Forum's very own website from 2019. Right now, we are losing the fight against climate change, but what would winning look like? What is life like in a green world? Here's one version of a utopia, more like dystopia. You walk out your front door in the morning into a green and livable city where concrete has dwindled and green facades and parks are spreading. If you choose to call a car, an algorithm will calculate the smartest route for the vehicle and pick up a few other people on the way. Since the city council's ban on private cars in the city, lots of new mobility services have arrived. Hold on a sec, what? Since the city council's ban on private cars, what in the hell? Since the city council's ban on private cars in the city, it is cheaper for you not to own your own car, which in turn reduces congestion so you arrive at your destination more easily and quickly and don't have to spend time looking for somewhere to park. You can also choose to travel by bike, scooter, or public transit. In my opinion, this constant impending doom of the climate change narrative pushed out by politicians, the mainstream media, the World Economic Forum is a way to implement certain agendas, like with COVID. It's like, never let a good crisis go to waste. The elites strategically use a crisis to implement a political agenda. The Great Reset is like the big, huge whole economic plan, and COVID kind of spurred that one more to life. So I don't know. It's kind of like the Biden administration. They seem to be using this gas price crisis to put a bunch of funding into switching over to like electric vehicles and implementing new policies. It's kind of like, look, guys, we need to stop being dependent on gas. We got to go green. I do think we need to do all we can to combat the Earth's pollution. I'm not saying that switching to electrical cars isn't a good thing. I'm just concerned about these policies and agendas and that like being in the wrong hands, used to sort of push another agenda along with it. The global elites, those who get a seat at the World Economic Forum's yearly Davos convention table, those who have power, money, or control in the economic decisions, policies, and systems of the society we live in, they just have me feeling a little bit suspicious when they start pushing new policies in the name of climate change. Clearly, the Biden administration wants to get more people using electric cars and wants more people using public transit via electric buses. What's interesting is that the states, they recently passed this new law. I think it was a couple months ago. They passed this new law that will mandate remote kill switches in every new vehicle by 2026. So every vehicle made in 2026 and onward will have this remote kill switch. So the reason they gave for this policy was basically to prevent drunk driving, because this technology, it's supposed to be able to detect whether you're impaired or not. And then if you are, it can automatically shut off your car. It's presented with good intent. Like, hey, we want to save more people, stop more drunk driving. I'm all for that, obviously. But this technology, it just seems a little bit problematic and kind of an invasion of someone's privacy and lack of control over their own vehicle. So this is from an article from thenewamerican.com. Big Brother backseat driver. New law mandates kill switches in all new cars. According to an article written by former U.S. Representative Bob Barr, hidden away in the recently passed infrastructure bill is a measure to install vehicle kill switches into every new car, truck, and SUV sold in this country. The regulation likely won't be enforced for 5 years, so maybe there's time to do something about this. Barr points out that the bill, which has been signed into law by President Biden, states that the kill switch, which is referred to as a safety device, must passively monitor the performance of a driver of a motor vehicle of a motor vehicle to accurately identify whether that driver may be impaired. In other words, Big Brother will constantly be monitoring how you drive. If you do something the system has been programmed to recognize as driver impairment, your car could just shut off, which could be incredibly dangerous. There is a possibility the kill switch program might measure your driving as impaired. Then when you try to start the car up again, the engine won't fire up. Moreover, Barr also warned that at issue is an open system, or at least one with a back door, meaning authorized or unauthorized third parties can remotely access the system's data at any time. So aside from possible hackers, police or other government agencies could presumably access your car system and kill your engine. This presents great privacy concerns, as Symes wonders, would a warrant be necessary for such action? Even if you don't fear tyranny, this technology poses serious practical problems. For example, what if a driver is not drunk but sleepy and the car forces itself to the side of the road before the driver can find a safe place to pull over and rest? Considering that there are no realistic mechanisms to immediately challenge or stop the car from being disabled, drivers will be forced into dangerous situations without their consent or control. The choice as to whether a vehicle can or cannot be driven for vehicles built after 2026 will rest in the hands of an algorithm over which the car's owner or driver have neither knowledge nor control, Barr adds. So I am just wondering, considering all this, all that we've talked about, like, is this push to get people on all the electric cars? You know, if everyone starts getting new cars, and obviously this isn't happening until 2026, like to push the public into eventually all getting on electric cars, it's going to take some time for sure, right? And only certain people are going to afford it, or like, how's that going to work? Are they going to give out grants or somehow invest in that? Or like, I just feel like whenever they want, they could go like, guys, the climate change is so bad. Like, if we don't act right now, we're all going to die. We need to get everyone on an electric car now. It's like with COVID, it's like they were able to shut down the entire economy and the lockdowns just kept happening. It's like we have to just shut everything down. And it's like, you know, that lost like millions and millions of dollars funding that has had to go into COVID. And I'm not even necessarily saying like, oh, these crises aren't real, or this, like, oh, it's all untrue. Like, there's no climate change whatsoever, or like with COVID, like there's a freaking virus, does like kill people and whatever, but it's like the scale of like how bad is this? Like, is this a huge impending crisis? Are the electric cars going to help? My whole point here was that if they start pushing people to get new cars because they have to be electric cars, and by 2026 all new cars have to have this kill switch in it, then like eventually they will be getting everyone to have the kill switch car, which just is concerning. Like, will your location be monitored too when you're driving? Or just the fact that like someone authorized or unauthorized can just shut off your car if they wanted to. Like, the government, I'm sure, can gain access to that stuff and like shut it down and whatever. And it just very much sounds like communism, and these things are implemented in the name of like safety, and we're keeping everyone safe and da da da. And I think in good hands, it would be a great thing for sure. But I don't trust the people that put these policies into motion. It makes me think about, say, you know, everyone had kill switches in their vehicles at this point in time. And recently we had our Freedom Convoy protest here in Canada, in Ottawa, and the Prime Minister enacted this Emergencies Act, which gave him like authoritarian sort of powers to shut down this protest that was a peaceful protest. They were basically freezing people's bank accounts, like organizers' bank accounts, and they were shut down like the funding for this peaceful protest. And it all had to do with truckers driving and convoying and stuff. And that's actually going on in the States right now. The US is doing their own convoy. It's like, imagine if these trucks had kill switches in them and they disabled people's vehicles. They like were able to stop people from even like driving to protest or whatever. Or you could stop people from leaving their house by deactivating everyone's cars. So say there's like another pandemic crisis, if they implement a lockdown, they could go, for everyone's safety, we are kill switching everyone's car so they can't go drive places and travel and spread this virus and whatever. And so yeah, it's a violation of people's privacy and freedom, like in the wrong hands. I think with good intentions, obviously these things, you know, are supposedly, it's supposed to be helping people in that, but I think that's kind of a cover for the true agenda. But anyways, I'll leave you guys with that. What are your guys' thoughts about all this? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to see more videos like this, I'm going to try to be doing more stuff like this, as well as continue doing various other types of content on this channel. Please click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, choose the all from that drop down menu so you can get notified every time I upload. Like if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next video. Love you guys. Bye.
Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.